Game dev is chaotic. It's a world where dreams are made and shattered in the blink of an eye. But what if there were laws to make the chaos manageable? Here are my 18 laws of game development. Crafted from over a decade of projects, from complete disasters to gold mines, lessons learned across more than 10 games with various team sizes, and from what I've learned within the industry. And be sure to stick around to the very end, where I'll reveal the game-changing rule that without, the laws crumble. At each law, you can replace the word player with customer or team if you work in the pipeline. With that said, let's begin. Law 1. Never make your dream game. Use small games as a staircase. Everyone has a dream game they want to make, but most dream games are too ambitious for beginners. Think of your dream game like a boss fight. Don't fight a level 60 dragon when you're only a level 2 priest. Start with smaller mobs and level up first. Since I was 12, I dreamt of making grand games. Multiplayer FPS, open world sandbox crafting games, and even MMORPGs. I wanted to create the next Fusion Fall. But I started, and started, and started again, and started again. None of these projects got anywhere. I realized that constantly chasing my dream game taught me little compared to what I could learn if I just made tangible projects. If you jump straight into your dream game, you might feel overwhelmed and quit before you even get to the point where you wanted to be. Therefore, start with smaller, achievable projects that build up your skills and confidence instead. They can even be features extracted from your dream game. These small wins will help you get closer to where you want to be, and in the end, you might even be able to make your dream game. Law 2. Finish projects at all costs. Iterate relentlessly. New ideas can be shiny and exciting, but chasing them often leads to unfinished projects. Don't get distracted by side quests when you know that you want to get finished with the storyline. This has been my Achilles heel for the first 8 years of game development. The biggest reason that it took so long for me to grow in game development was because I was jumping from opportunity to opportunity, and that discarded all the progress I've made in a project. When I then instead started to finish projects, that was when my growth skyrocketed. If you give up projects too easily, you'll just be left with a bunch of unfinished projects and little to no progress. Therefore, resist the urge to jump ships just because there are other shiny opportunities. Finish projects, even when they become difficult and boring, is essential for growth. Law 3. Reflect, evolve, post-mortem. Game dev is full of mistakes, and everyone just keeps jumping from project to project without reflecting what happened in the project, what went good and what went wrong. But without reflecting, you never truly learn. The first project we had in school, we made a lot of mistakes. This led to us not having a minimum viable product that we could show until a week left of development. We then had a post-mortem and moved on to the second project. I used all the knowledge I gained from that, and we made an MVP before the pre-prod was even finished. For reference, this was one of my most successful projects. Ignoring this step early in my game development journey with Unity projects led to me repeating the same mistake over and over again, expecting different results. It's frustrating because I could have went so much further now if I just took this into heart. Therefore, doing a post-mortem is essential after any project you do. Take the time, however short that is, to reflect on what went good, what went bad, and what you can make better until the next game. This habit helps you learn from your mistake and make better choices in the future. Law 4. Serve the player, not oneself. Game devs are very passionate people, and you might fall in love with features and ideas very fast. But remember, what you like might not be what the player needs. Just because you like spicy food doesn't mean that you should cook a spicy meal for the customer. In school, we had game testing sessions, but we only did this 2 to 3 times per game, often waiting weeks for our first test. Features we thought were clear and fun were very misunderstood. Many added little value and catered more to our pride than the player experience. Test your game early and listen to player feedback. They know better what they want than you do. But remember to take suggestions with a grain of salt, because some things might be unrealistic. The worst thing you can do is make assumptions about what the player wants, because it is what you want. Get feedback early and make games that player likes, not that you like to show off. Therefore, always prioritize player experience over your desires. Anticipate what they need, even though they don't know it yet. The player is a customer, so make a product they would like to consume. Law 5. Build games, not technology. Technology can be really amazing, with new rendering techniques, optimizations and cool effects. It's tempting to use the latest, most advanced technology. But building for the sake of tech leads to tech demos, not games. And complexity often brings more problem than it's worth. When building our custom engine in school, we focused a lot on having proper structure. This felt awesome in the moment. Everything was perfect. But it took way too long to make features in our engine. And we needed to say no to a lot of things that were detrimental, just because we couldn't make it in time. On the flip side, there were groups in the school that made really cool features and really good player experiences, but didn't have as cool tech or as perfect structure in the engine. If we instead would have focused on a great game, we would have less of a tech demo and more of a player experience. Therefore, focus on making a project that's enjoyable, rather than just showing off. And if simple solution will work, stick to it. You'll save time, reduce frustration, and have a smoother workflow. Law 6. Tools are for purpose, not for burden. Hundreds of tools are being created daily in game dev. But for a feature to be called a tool, it must give back more than it takes. If this is time, energy or performance, really doesn't matter. Before my 4th project in school, I made a particle edit. This was a really cool tool for me to make so early on, and I used it a ton. The thing is, it took weeks to develop, and no one in the team used it. For the project, we needed to create particle effects, but there were so few that we needed, so we just hard-coded them instead. I should have planned earlier and realized that the tool I was making wasn't serving a purpose. If you create tools that make things harder or eat up resources instead of saving you resources, you'll waste time and frustrate your team. Therefore, make tools that save resources or enhances the process, and make sure it's not a waste of time. Law 7. Keep it simple, stupid. Now interpret that how you want. Learning everything can feel rewarding, but trying to use complex, future-proof solutions to everything can make your tasks overwhelming. When I moved from the school type of coding to the job, I wanted to recreate everything to make it clean and perfectly structured. But I learned that keeping things simple has real powers. Features get added faster and progress doesn't get bugged up. It taught me that while good structure is important, simplicity almost always wins, especially in fast-paced environments. Therefore, solve problems simply and prioritize what is needed in the moment right now. Make it work and then make it good. Law 8. Kill your darlings. Cut, add and adapt. Game dev is an industry with very passionate people, which makes it very natural to get attached to your creations. But clinching on too tightly can harm the project. The first game we made in the school, we aimed for cool effects and overscope. We insisted on adding a cape for the player, even though it was unnecessary. This took up too many resources and slowed us down. Eventually, we cut the cape and focused on the core game, which helped us finish the MVP faster than ever. On the flip side, in our last 3 projects, a group had a reputation for avoiding unnecessary features and sticking to the basics. Because of that, their games were always the best and most polished. If you hold on to features you love, even though they don't work, the project will suffer. Therefore, be ready to change, adapt, and even cut features if they aren't working. It might be painful, but it is what is needed to make a great polished product. Law 9. Don't fall in love with the outcome. Learn to love the process. It's natural to dream about the final product, but game development is a long journey and creating a game can take years. I loved staying late at school, building projects that we were all passionate about. It wasn't about making the perfect game, but about enjoying the process of making it. Now, working on long projects at a company, I've learned you have to love each step of the journey. If you only care about finishing the game, you'll lose sight of the joy of making a game. It's game development after all. Therefore, learn to love the process itself. Celebrate small achievements and find joy in the day-to-day work. Law 10. Specialize for mastery, not mediocrity. Many say that being a generalist is the key to success. But generalization often leads you to being mediocre at everything. In my job search, I noticed most companies, especially larger ones, want specialists in an orchestra, not a soloist. You don't need to over-specialize, but having a clear title helps. In one interview for a tools programmer role, I mentioned my graphics expertise. The interviewer doubted my commitment since I planned to transition away from tools, which cost me the opportunity. When I focused solely on graphics programming instead, big companies started to reach out to me instead. If you try doing everything, you might end up being average at everything and good at nothing. Therefore, specialize in one thing while maintaining a broad understanding of the others. Mastery in one area opens up so much more opportunities because you will outshine everyone in that area. There are too many people with half-ass generalized knowledge. Dive deep instead. Law 11. Game dev is greater than the sum of its parts. It can feel like your contribution and your role is insignificant, but game development is an orchestra. Each piece, no matter how small, contribute to the final product, even the triangle. The best part of game development is jumping between teammates and working together to bring a feature to life. Instead of figuring everything out alone, you have a specialist who each contributes their expertise, making the product shine. I've experienced the loneliness of doing it all myself, but also the joy of collaborating with others who share the same passion. When people focus on what they do best, the game becomes a reflection of everyone's combined talent and energy, creating something so much better than any one person could do. If you only focus on individual parts of the game, it might feel disjoined of the player experience. Therefore, always keep the bigger picture in mind. And remember that your work is crucial to the whole. Law 12. Befriend other game devs. Learn and work together. Working alone gives you control, but it also limits growth. Imagine you being a priest. You can never slay the end boss yourself, but it also isn't possible for the tank player to slay it without you. Therefore, work and learn together. Building good relationships in the game dev community is crucial. You never know when you'll cross paths with someone again. Even if you don't love everyone you work with, stay professional, because friendships today can lead to opportunities tomorrow. If you isolate yourself, you'll miss out on learning from others. The things they have learned and can share might save you years down the line. Therefore, make connections in the game dev community. Friends and peers can give you insights and really help you with things that otherwise would have taken a long time for you to learn. Law 13. Practice crushes theory. Make theory your side dish. It's easy to get lost in the reading and theory, but this often leads to feeling productive without actually making any progress. Reading a cookbook won't make you a great chef. As mentioned before, in the beginning, I relied heavily on tutorials, GDC talks, and books. But knowing a lot doesn't mean you can actually do it. It's like talking the talk without walking the walk. Learn to stop theorizing and start taking action. By taking action, you'll discover the theory that is needed to support the work you're doing. If you only learn theory instead of practice, you'll end up procrastinating rather than making progress. Therefore, focus on practical work. Theory is useful, but it should always be on second place. Law 14. Never fully follow tutorials. Use them as crutches instead. Tutorials are helpful when starting out, but relying on them too heavily leads you to tutorial hell. Get rid of the training wheels and start learn to do things yourself. In the early stages of my journey, I relied heavily on tutorials for everything, from coding to design. While they were helpful, I found myself stuck, unable to think outside of the box. I remember a time in school where I was going to make a grid system together with a city building system. I followed tutorials and I could do the one and the other, but I just couldn't put them together. And this led to me not being able to finish the assignment. After that, I really tried to learn things without the help of tutorials. I instead use the tutorials as crutches. If you rely too much on tutorials, you won't be able to solve problems yourself. Therefore, use tutorials as a guide, but challenge yourself to apply what you learn independently so that you can grow from it. Law 15. Never relearn what you've already learned. Forge ahead. Staying in your comfort zone might feel safe, but learning what you've already learned is just a waste of time. After finishing projects in the beginning, I fell into the trap of revisiting old lessons instead of moving forward. I spent weeks redoing what I already knew, trying to perfect it, trying to make a new project that was exactly the same like the last one, but just doing it again because I knew more now. The problem with this was that I never grew. One morning I decided enough was enough. I focused on embracing the challenges instead of repeating the past success. If you don't step out of your comfort zone, you won't learn new things. Therefore, push yourself to go out of the box and do things that you're uncomfortable with. Mistakes aren't a part of the process, they are the process. Law 16. Resist grand temptations. Stick to what you know best. Shiny new features and tools are exciting, but they often distract you from the work at hand. I've tried every game engine and tools imaginable in Gamedev. From Photoshop to Blender, Unity, Unreal, Godot, GameMaker, everything. But when did I actually grow the most? Well, definitely not hopping from tool to tool. Instead, double down on what you know best and just scout for opportunities and see if they are truly worth switching to. Therefore, focus on your strength and just add things if they generally add value to the project. Law 17. Time equals money. Invest wisely for return. Plan for delay. It's tempting to do everything yourself, but trying to do every aspect of game dev yourself is inefficient and just leads to burnout. Projects cost money. To impress a company, become a main reason for their success. Recognize what drains resources and adjust to minimize waste while maximizing profit. Delays are inevitable in game development, so factoring them into your planning is crucial to limit resource wasting. The time I save through outsourcing allows me to focus on other important tasks. Every indie developer learns this lesson over time, but hearing it earlier might help you make the right decision earlier. If you try to do everything yourself, not only will it be worse, but you will probably burn yourself out. Therefore, delegate tasks, work with others, and focus on what you do best, because that is what will make the best product. Law 18. The death of passion is the death of game dev. Experiment or lose your soul. In game dev, passion is the fuel. If you lose that spark, you risk not only losing the motivation, but also the essence of what makes a game great. But it's easy to fall into a routine and use the previous laws very rigidly. You also stop exploring new ideas and experiment with your craft. Game dev has flowed through my veins for over 10 years, but I haven't worked consistently throughout that time. Losing my passions occasionally made it easy to step back when things didn't go as planned. That's why it's crucial to embrace these laws consciously. Take them to heart, but never sacrifice your passion to fit into the mold. Implement a few at a time, rotate them as you learn, and most importantly, have fun. Game dev thrives on the passion of its community, and the passion is that keeps the industry alive. Had I continued down the path of just having everything black and white and never experimenting with things, I would have risked not only having bad projects, but probably quitting with game dev altogether. By embracing experimentation and actually do things outside of the things that you need to do, I found the love for the craft again. Therefore, to thrive in game development, embrace experimentation. You have learned the 18 essential laws to game development, but there is one rule that makes them all crumble if not implemented. It's called the 80-20 rule. It focuses on maximizing your output by identifying the 20% of the features that result in 80% of the outcomes. By reflecting on this at each of the laws, you won't waste time on things that don't matter in the end. Remember though, it's not just about making games. It's about creating an experience for the player. These laws are just a roadmap for you to be able to create that journey in way easier and better ways. I've experienced and reiterated these laws so many times because of my mistakes. So use my mistakes as your fuel. Taking it to heart makes us better game developers. If you found this video helpful and you need that extra little boost to get into game development, or if you just want to see how I did it, be sure to check out this next video, which explains how I transitioned all of the passion I had in video games to game development.